Hey, what's going on, guys? Thank you so much for coming back to the One More Idea podcast. This is Mike here.
I'm Mike DeLuna.
Mike and Mike. And today we're ready to jump in and just give you guys some life-changing, just that one more idea.
Yeah, exactly. Everybody can use an idea, man. So we're here to provide that today for sure.
They can.
Yeah.
And here's the reason why. We always talk about Thomas Edison says, I have not failed. I found 10,000 ways that won't work. All he needed was one more idea. You see the airplane going off? It's the light bulb moment, that one more. All he needed was that one idea. That's the only thing that was separating him from one of the world's greatest inventions that we'll ever see.
Yeah.
We have a ring light behind the camera, and that's what he did. He invented the incandescent light bulb.
That's a challenging word. And the funny thing about it, man, while you're talking about the light bulb, is I've said that to people before because I love that quote from him. And there was some, you always have those people that say, well, if it wasn't him, then somebody else would have invented, like the Wright brothers. Somebody else would have invented flying. But the funny thing about it, man, is, and I don't know if we're gonna dive right into this, but last night I was so fortunate to preach at the Dive here at our church, and we were talking about vision, man, and it was so impactful because he received a vision or a dream or something of that sort to build a light bulb. Like, it wasn't like he just came up with an idea, said, we need light, these candles aren't working, like they die out, so I want to do something more permanent. He received that vision, and then he just kept trying. He was obsessed with trying 10,000 times until he said, you know what, all this time I finally found that one thing I was waiting on. And so it all started from a thought, a vision, a dream. It all started from a seed, sort of. And man, I told my way of overcoming what that person told me was like, yeah, somebody else would have did it though eventually. But that was his vision. That was something that he owned, and he didn't quit until he mastered it. So that starts making me wonder and thinking, like, what visions and dreams do we have that if we just keep failing 10,000 times, it'll come to pass, So you got some dad jokes, man? You gonna throw out
do. You saw me
I see
pull
you
it
getting
up.
your phone, man.
You already know. Bad dad jokes. But hey, before we get to that, I was talking to a real good friend of mine. Shout out to Matthew Byers, somebody that me and him used to, as we would call, shred back in the day. On the skateboard.
Yeah.
We used to shred. Sure. We used to tear it up. And we were talking about just like the OGs in the skateboarding community and how like that's who we are now. Yeah. Like showing the up and coming kids like how to do tricks and stuff. But we were just I was telling him there was this OG skater. His name was Brad Dunn. He used to skate with us, and I'll never forget. Like, there was a turning point in my skateboarding when he taught me how to kickflip. If you don't know, that's where the board comes up and you basically kick it and it spins like that and you land it with both feet. Right. He said in order to do a kickflip, you have to see it before you do it. You have to envision yourself doing it. And, man, I did that. Like, whenever a trick would get the toughest, I would go back to my roots, which was you just have to see yourself doing it. So I would like close my eyes and just envision myself doing that trick. Like, I remember one of the hardest tricks I ever tried was a 50-50 down a handrail at a skate park. And I just kept trying it. And then I was like, God, man, I can't do this. And then I was like, how can I do this? And ironically, I prayed. I used to just pray. Before I was a Christian, it'd be like a fake prayer, like, God, I'll follow you for the rest of my life if you let me land this trick. But then secretly I know I don't mean that. I just want him to let me land the trick. Right. But in that moment, I envisioned myself doing the trick, and then boom, I landed it right after that. Wow. Because like you said, you just have to believe in yourself and believe that you can do it. Like, how does somebody like Kanye West get famous? Because, I mean, if you listen to his music now, like, I believe Jesus is King is his absolute best album. Right. But I wanted to go back and listen to some of his older stuff, and I'm like, I don't get what the hype is all about. He can make pretty good beats, but I'm just not that impressed. But there is a reason that he made it to where he is, because he saw himself, and if you watch a documentary about him, he saw himself doing it before he ever did it. He just like knew that that's what he was going to be.
Yeah.
And he almost like spoke it into existence. So yeah, you kind of opened up a can when, you, when you brought that one up.
Well, that goes kind of even back to, if you guys need to watch the other podcast that we did this season, actually, and we started talking a lot about talent. And we talked about, like, someone might have more talent than you, but if you make in your mind that you're going to outwork them, out hustle them, like let's go back to the skateboarding analogy, because I used to skateboard too, and so what happened was,
I didn't know that.
Yeah, dude, I used to skateboard, man.
I have a fellow OG in the house.
Yeah, man. Well, I broke my ankle, and it pretty much ended my skateboarding career, because it was either skateboarding or drumming. And what happened was, because I broke my the ankle that you usually use for a kick drum, I had to learn to use my left foot. And this is the cool thing about that, is that during service, this is something you might not even know. Like, there are times where, as a drummer, your pedal, like one of your pedals may shift, or the spring broke on one of my pedals one time, and I use a double bass pedal. And one reason why I do that is because I always know I have two pedals. So listen to this. One day in service, it wasn't here, it was at another church. We were in the middle of, man, just worshiping and everything, and my right pedal, which is the main kick drum pedal, the spring broke. So it just flops back, and you can't do anything with it. So I immediately had to start playing with my left pedal.
Wow.
And what happened was, because I broke my ankle, I learned how to use my left pedal just as effective as the right. So I said all that to say is that I had to make up my mind, okay, is it going to be skateboarding, or am I going to actually focus more on drumming, because I hurt myself so many times skateboarding, man. And it's one of those things where, and this, when you're on the skating rink, you kind of compare injuries, like, dude, I broke this, or I broke my toes missing, so, but I say all that to say that when I was doing that and learning tricks and everything, I used to stay at the skate, but we didn't have a park at the time. It was just an empty parking lot. And but I stayed out there forever, man, because all the other kids would come and say, okay, now we're going to go play video games. But I would stay out there because there were kids that were naturally better than me, and I knew I had to outwork them and put in the time. So I just say this, for anybody that feels like I'm just not good enough to do what you guys are talking about, these ideas sound great, but I'm not good enough for that, then put in more time and put in and more into your craft. So that's what it's about,
Yeah, so we got some bad dad jokes here.
All right,
you ready for some bad
ready
dad
for
jokes?
a bad dad
We're
joke.
jumping in. So I got a question for you, Mike.
Okay, what's the question?
And you guys may hear, we got somebody, we're just in our church hallway here, but we got somebody walking in, so just ignore that.
Yeah.
But which bear is the most condescending?
The most, I don't know. Grizzlies, bears. I don't know anything about bears.
Dude, a panda. A panda.
That's hilarious.
Mike.
All right,
Panda.
Let's get another one. That one was really funny.
Okay. What did the evil chicken lay? You can get this one. What did the evil chicken lay?
I don't know. Rotten egg.
Deviled egg. Hey, so here's a funny something I saw on Facebook the other day that gets you thinking. If you have egg salad and chicken salad,
yeah.
Well, where's an egg come from?
Well, I mean, it
comes from a chicken.
Yeah, but yeah.
So isn't egg salad still just chicken salad?
Yeah, it really is.
If you think about it.
Now that you think about it. And see, these are some of the things that, I was going to talk about in my Blitz idea was about vision. Mm-hmm. And so, like, Michael spent time, applying his brain cells to figuring that analogy out when a lot of times, like, if you focus, and this is what I was talking about last night, like, you have dreams and you have visions. And it's just like what you just said. Like, what's the difference? It's still a chicken salad, right? It's still an egg. But a vision is something that you receive while you're awake. A dream is something that you receive while you're sleeping. But they're both the same thing.
Yeah.
So I was going to use my Blitz time to talk about what stops people from the Thomas Edison. He had a vision. It could have been a dream. He could have dreamed that I'm the inventor of the light bulb. I once dreamed, man, I'm like a professional musician, or I love touring and I love, playing drums professionally. And Michael could have dreamed I'm a professional guitarist or I'm a professional skateboarder. And I got all these endorsements behind me. But what stops you from the dream the root or the seed all the way to actually, he just said a minute ago, this person envisioned that this is what they are. What stops people from the dream or the seed to the harvest? Like, that's what I want to kind of discuss for a minute. Like, what are some of your thoughts that stops that? What squashes people's hopes and dreams and visions?
I think there's three things I heard this guy talk about, and he said one of them is you've got to. He said these are the biggest words of wisdom he ever got from Zig Ziglar. Mm-hmm. Okay, and Zig Ziglar was telling him there's three big things that you should work on in life. The first one is your mindset. Yeah. You should really work really, really hard on getting a stronger mindset, a more resilient, a more capable mindset. And if you don't know what that looks like, maybe like self-help books, go see a therapist. It doesn't mean there's anything wrong with you, but just going to get a checkup, just like we go to doctors for a checkup on our body. Yeah. We should do the same thing with our minds. Maybe there's certain ways that we're approaching situations that could be approached better, that we could have better breakthrough, that we could be more successful in life if we had a better mindset. Right. So that's the first thing he said to work on. The second thing is your communication skills. Try to find a way to be more effective as a communicator. Find somebody, or again, self-help books, or read a book about it, watch videos about it. Just off the top of my head, there's a book on how to deliver a TED speech, and what's so incredible about TED speeches is that you have somebody who's speaking for about 15 to 20 minutes, and some of those things are the absolute most impactful speeches I've ever heard. Why? Because they know how to communicate effectively, communicate clear, and communicate in a very non-fluff way. Yeah. Okay, and then the third thing is quality people. And there was some kind of acronym for it, but I can't remember it. But basically, surround yourself with quality people who are in a place that you want to be. I was talking to somebody about this morning. In fact, we were talking about a person who just can't make a decision and is kind of swayed and influenced by what other people say, and let's say I tell you, hey, you know what? I want to start a podcast. Well, and then you come back and you say, well, I don't think that's a good idea because of X, Y, and Z. And, that's your opinion, right? That's all your opinion. But this person takes your opinion as that's what they should do. Okay, I'm going to do exactly what you're saying. I'm not going to do that now. So they're setting their desires aside, and they're only doing, and I'm not saying that that's not a quality person to be around, but I do think that you should surround yourself with people who are going to influence you in a way that's going to lift you, in a way that's going to push you, in a way that's going to bring out what's inside of you, not make what's inside of you cower and back away.
Well, perfect example of that, man. I'll just jump in right there. And again, this is how, when you have a partner, a friend, somebody like Michael and I, is, he had this idea of this barbecue situation, a year and a half ago, and he brought it to my attention and was like, what do you think? And man, we started masterminding ways that this, hey, did you think about this? What about this for a loan? What about, a food truck? And it just blew up, and never did I think in my mind, dude, you're barbecue, seriously? Well, focus on something else, like music, man. That's your thing, not cooking. So that's one that I talked about last night, is that you have to watch who you're receiving advice from, because sometimes people will kill your hopes and dreams quicker than anything, and I told the students last night that usually what it is, man, is it's their own fear. Maybe they wanted to start a restaurant, but they were scared, or they saw so much failure, because the truth is I don't know the stat, but I'm sure if we dove into it, we could. But maybe say out of 10 businesses, maybe only a handful, 2, 3, 4 survive their first year, and then the second year it goes down to maybe 1%, 2%. So maybe if you think about that, you say, you know what, I probably shouldn't do that. Maybe I'm going to be out of business in 5 years. But I was telling them, if you never try it, if you never do the 10,000 times on the light bulb, you'll never get that finished product like he's doing now, man. His business is booming. So one thing I'll just say, since I have the floor, is distractions are a big thing that can kill visions. And so Social media, I love social media. I'm on it every single second of the day because I use it for business and other things. But social media can be a huge distraction, man. Because typically now, if you think about it, in the 90s, we had, news. News was really your only source. Like, you turn on the news and you see what's going on in the world. Now, everybody can be a reporter with social media. I mean, literally, I could whip out my phone and film something that's going on in my neighborhood. It's a blessing and a curse because everybody's throwing their opinion out there, just like Michael said. And what if I'm thinking about, starting a business and somebody is reporting about how awful their business has been? Does it happen? Yes. And maybe I'm discouraged by seeing that because there's so much more negative out there than positive. You don't have to look hard for the negative. It's there. But the positive is something you have to really dive into. And that's why we're doing this, man, because we want to just be a light in our community and ultimately on a platform like this to reach more people in the entire world. But distraction, for me, my blitz idea is, minimize or really watch the distractions that you have in your life. Because you can't focus on a vision if your brain is cluttered with all the other stuff that's going on in your world,
Yeah, especially, I haven't talked about this stat in a while, but we have about 18 to 40, anywhere from like 18 to 80,000 thoughts in a day.
Mm-hmm.
And research has shown us, with research that they've done, I don't know how they figured this out, but they've narrowed it down to 80% of those thoughts are negative. 90% of those thoughts are repetitive. So here's the kicker. If you're surrounded with negative people, like I would say that number, that statistic probably gets higher. And if you're not doing something, which I think will kind of help us segue into our big idea today.
Yeah.
If you're not doing something to combat that, I would say when you're surrounded with negative people, and whenever you are in a negative mindset, like we talked about, you got to work on your mindset. And whenever, you're looking at something like Facebook or maybe even movies and TV shows, and maybe even you have a coworker who's constantly negative, they say, man, I just like to keep it real. But really, they're just negative, and that's just the way that they sugarcoat it.
Yeah,
but
it negative.
Typically, when people say that, it's just like they just embrace negativity. And what happens is that number, I don't know this for a fact, but I would say that number, that 80%, probably goes from 80% upwards in 90s, mid-90s,
Wow.
And then because we have repetitive thoughts, what do you think you're repetitively going to be? If you're not combating that, like creating a habit of positivity and positive reinforcement in your mind and surrounding yourself with positive people, what do you think the repetitive thoughts are going to be?
Yeah.
They're not going to be positive. They're going to be negative. And this is like critical, I believe, in our success in society and socializing in just every area of our life. I would say it determines like the outlook of your future. If you want to have a good, positive, fulfilled life, you've got to get that statistic. You've got to get that percentage to change. And here's the cool thing. You have control of it.
Yeah.
And the big idea today is, really it's just a simple statement. And then I want me and you for the next however long, we do this to just expand and give resources. But the big idea is on Craig Rochell's leadership podcast. He always says when the leader gets better, everybody wins. And, we're leaders, whether we like it or not, in our life, in our family, in our workplace, in the military, in government, in, church. We're leaders. We're leaders as husband and wife. Like, we're leaders in so many areas of our life. And when we grow and we get better, everybody around us wins.
Yeah.
So that's something that I want us to expand on is like, why? First of all, why does that happen? Like, why is that important? Why does that statement seem important to us? And then I want to give our listeners some resources on how they can grow and how they can get better.
Yeah. So, I'll say this. I was in a meeting, a business meeting, and, this person, an economist, was talking, and he made a very interesting point that just blew my mind because it's absolutely in context with what we're talking about today. So he said he said that, are you, the question is, are you setting yourself up or are you in line to make more money? He's an economist, so he talks about money. So he said, this year over year, are you growing financially? So everybody in the room is like, yeah, I made a little money, or no, I'm still on the same salary as I was last year. He said, well, this is what's happening. And he showed a pie chart or bar chart from 1914 on to now of how inflation works. He said, listen, a gallon of milk used to be this much. Gas used to be this much, and now it's this much. He goes, so inflation is, things are costing more money. And everybody's like, yeah, we agree. And if your salary is here, but it's not going up to combat or to at least cushion the inflation, then he showed in the next 5 to 10 years, this is the where you're going to be at. And it was shocking because there are some people out there that think, if I'm not growing, I'm not getting worse. I'm just me. I'm just kind of in the middle of the road. But the truth is because of the word inflation, and you can apply that however you apply it, but because of inflation, if you're not growing, you are getting worse because you're not bringing more value to yourself or the marketplace. And that's where it becomes a problem. So what do you think about that?
Yeah, I think, you said that best, and you'll have to send me that study. But I definitely do think, you have to, as I've always said this with the church, as the anointing grows, you have to grow with it. Mm-hmm. And as the church grows, you have to grow with it. As an organization grows, you have to grow with it. As the world grows, you have to grow with it. And especially if you use an example like, real estate, or what's something that's like always, like the music business is always like, it's moldable. So it's always changing. Like, now, like with synths and keyboards, you're hearing a big influence. Like most of the music that people are putting out, like hip hop and just like
even country has synth.
Contemporary music. They're all like going back to the 80s. Well, we're not in the 80s. We're in the 2020s. And it's like, but they want to go back. Well, in the 80s, they wanted to go forward. So it's like just there's this constant like tug of war of like, you have to be adaptable, and in order to be adaptable, you have to grow. And we've talked about it before. There's this process of being a sponge, soaking up, learning, and then you sit on it and kind of marinate in everything you've learned, and then you produce. Well, then you have to go back and learn. And that's where I think a lot of people, they just get caught up in everything after that. And they don't keep learning. They get stagnant. They get, and I think the word that comes to mind is apathetic. Only doing enough to get by. Only doing enough to keep your boss off your radar. Don't do too much because then he'll expect more out of you. Don't do too less because then you might lose your job. Just do enough to get by. And I think that that's one of the worst things you can do because, who do you think they're going to choose for that promotion? Definitely not the person that doesn't go above and beyond. Definitely not the person who shows up early and stays late. Definitely, like, that is not going to be the person who gets the opportunity. So when we think about inflation and we think about, the economy's changing and job opportunities are changing and, who are they going to choose? They're going to choose that person who's always fresh, who always has new ideas, who does more than is expected of them. That's the people I want to promote. I don't care how talented somebody is. If they only do enough to get by, that's not somebody I want to promote. That's not somebody I want to do a podcast with. That's not somebody that I want to spend life with, because I want to surround myself with quality people who are in a place that I want to be, and that includes people who are constantly growing. And here's my question for you.
That's a good one.
How does everybody win when the leader gets better?
Well, okay, so I've been kind of pondering that since you told me that's what your thought was for today and our big idea. And I'm going to give you a very, very simple way to improve yourself, to earn more money. The secret to getting into the next level. It's very simple, but it's also very simple to not do. And what that is that if you want to increase value in your family, in your life, in your workplace, is learn how to be a problem solver. Because I was told one time, I went in as a 21-year-old kid, and I went into my boss, into the office where I worked at the time, and I said, listen, I'm here, just like you said, I'm here early, I stay late, like I've been at this company for about 5 years. I mean, you don't have anybody else that's been here that long. I've learned every department. Like, why have I've not received a raise? And the aha, and my mindset was off. I was barely a teenager, a little bit out of my teenage years at the time. So I didn't have the knowledge ultimately that I have now, and the humbleness. You know, I was very arrogant, if you will. And I said, I think I need a raise. And he goes, let me ask you a question. I said, okay. He goes, what problems have you solved lately that you've had an opportunity to solve? And I started thinking, I'm like, well, I do my job, though. He goes, that's not what I'm asking. What problems have you solved that leadership cares about? You know, because here's the thing, guys, for those that are out there, and Michael said something great a minute, we're all leaders. You can be a housewife and you run the house. You know, you run the kids, you run the husband, you know, all that kind of stuff. So finances at times, if you are a leader at your job. And John Maxwell says something great. He says, you don't have to be the CEO to be the leader of a company. If you manage the janitorial staff, you're a leader. If you're just a janitor, you're a leader. And if you can solve problems, then that's the quickest way to get up to a CEO level. Because a leader, believe it or not, and I'm pretty sure that our pastor here has the same situation, the leader is the one that all the problems lands on his or her laps. And it's his or her responsibility to come up with a solution. And all the eyes are looking at that leader, right? And so if you get good at problem solving, then that's the secret to you moving up to any level within a company, within an organization, within the barbecue business, being a musician. If you can fill these gaps that companies and businesses have with problems,
okay, I've got to hop in.
Then guess what?
I've got to hop in.
You're going to make it. You're going to make it big. Go ahead, man.
Wow. So what if somebody's saying, well, no, that's not my department? But okay. And then let's say a manager, they don't know a manager's looking at them, and somebody's like thinking in their mind, well, there's a problem. Everybody sees the problem, but everybody's like, well, that's just not my department. Billy's going to fix it. Well, Billy just took like a 3-week vacation, you know, so they're going to wait for 3 weeks to get that fixed. Well, who do you think's gonna like get major brownie points from their manager, even if they're not required to do it? If they say, you know what, I'm just gonna do this, whatever it is, and it's a problem that needs to be solved, that maybe even only Billy knows how to do it. But let's say Jack and Jill, they both went home and talked to each other and said, hey, you research how to do this part of it, I'll research how to do this part, and even though this is out of our area of expertise, we're going to come back because we know it needs to be done, and this is going to help everybody, even though we're not going to get paid to do it, even though it's out of our department, out of our skill set, out of our job area, you know. And then here's what's going to happen. Let's say a year down the road, manager's going to remember, wow, you guys like knocked this out of the park. I'm kind of thinking we need to develop another person who does this part-time, and I'll like triple your pay.
Yeah.
Or, you know, and that's, I know people personally that's happened to.
Yeah, me too.
Even though it's a little bit out of their skill set, because they showed a little bit of effort doing it one time in the past, you know, boom, a door opens up. And man, I've seen that happen, you know, for our church. I've had to learn how to build websites. I've had to learn how to do graphics. I've had to learn how to, oh my gosh, like there's just so many other things that I've learned. Like I've learned how to tune pianos.
Yeah.
I've learned how to like chop down a tree with a chainsaw. And like what has happened is like I get calls, I will say, I don't know, maybe 3 times a quarter of somebody who wants me to tune their piano. And that's a really good side hustle, you know, building guitars. And just, I'm constantly trying to find that side hustle, that thing, even though I don't get paid to do it necessarily all the time, that I can help somebody, or I can, like you said, solve a problem.
Yeah.
You know, and that's one of the things about my personality, though.
Yeah.
So for the person who isn't good at solving problems, we're talking about how can you help everybody to win? be on the lookout for that problem that, like, if you were to apply yourself just a little bit, we're not saying invent a light bulb. We're saying just apply yourself just a little bit, and you'll see that it'll open doors for you if you can get to the place where you can solve problems. Because everybody will win.
Well, you said it best. So the very beginning of our podcast, we said, it starts with mindset. And so I read a book called The Experience, and it's the business model for Walt Disney. And Walt Disney created, first, I think what it starts with is culture. What's the culture of your organization? What's the culture of your church? What's the culture of your household? Because here's the thing, sometimes the leader, now I'm going to pick on you leaders for a minute. Sometimes the leader sometimes creates a culture where the people that are following you don't feel comfortable empowered. They don't feel comfortable bringing you ideas and solutions because you as a leader want to be the one that always gets the recognition. And so the way it works is in servant leadership, you actually work for the people that hypothetically work for you. So great leaders know how to serve, flat out. So if you're working for someone that is an amazing leader because they're always coming to you saying, hey, what do you need? How can I help you? It goes back to Zig Ziglar's quote that if you want the things you want, then help somebody get what they want. If you live by that, then you're always giving. So back into the book, Walt Disney gave an example. Actually, it was written by one of his chief executive officers at the time he was at Disney, and he was explaining the day in the life at Walt Disney. And Walt Disney basically made it very clear that it's everybody's job to give the client or customer an experience that they're going to always remember, and they're going to turn around. And he calls them brand ambassadors, and I use this in all my teachings at my job, is that what you want to do is make a customer or a client a brand ambassador for your organization. So we're here at a church. So how can the experience at our church cause people that come here to make the church, they're going to be brand ambassadors for us and go in the community and say, man, that worship was amazing. The word was top notch. Like, it was clean. I noticed everybody walking around church and there was paper on the ground and they didn't step over it. They just felt like, oh, this is my job. I'll pick it up. So when you create a culture where it's everybody's job to do 1, 2, 3, then you'll never have to tell somebody, hey, you need to go pick up that trash. Like, it's just a natural thing to do it, right? Mm-hmm. So to me, real leadership is creating a culture where everybody feels comfortable bringing those ideas, and they don't feel like you're going to slap them and say, why are you trying to do Bob's job? Like, stay in your lane. Like, you're just a janitor. No, if a janitor came to me and said, hey, I have an idea of how we can save money on, mops or whatever, and here's my theory. We can do 1, 2, 3. I'm going to be really impressed and say, you just solved a problem for me because I'm spending money unnecessarily, and you're about to save me $200 a year. So now, like Michael said, I'm looking at that janitor like, I wonder what else they can do, what other problems they can solve around the church or the business that can save me money. So now I might go take him to lunch and say, hey, I have an idea. I have a position that's coming down the pipeline, and you're probably going to be a great fit at that. Is that something that interests you? I mean, that's how you move up, because we're talking about without, if you're not growing as a leader, you can't help other people grow. And to me, it's, if you're a leader out there, create a culture that people want to be a part of, man, and encourage those people to think outside the box and to solve problems. It's all of your job, not just the leader's job. It's everybody's job,
Yeah, I'll share one last story, and then we'll talk about some resources, because I have one that I'm going to throw out and remind me about the 5 dysfunctions of a team. Mm-hmm. So I think that's definitely one that you were making me think of.
Okay.
Because when you said your people on your team might not think they might not feel like they have the freedom to bring up good ideas. That's a book that addresses that. Have you read it?
No, I haven't.
Oh my gosh, I have a copy.
I need to check that out.
I'll give you a copy. But one of the greatest books I've ever read. Quick read, enjoyable read. So I'll come back to that though. So basically, when we're talking about like people who, they stop growing at some point, and there's probably a list of like reasons why people stop growing. But one example that I was thinking of is a food truck. Okay, a year ago, actually, I started doing a cooking barbecue in 2020 out of a need. I had a problem. You know what my problem was?
What's that?
I wanted to eat barbecue. And everybody was shut down, and I had this barbecue pit that my brother-in-law gave me, never used. And he was like, man, it's just all rusted and bad. Well, I knew I could fix it up, give it a little TLC, scrape it, re-season it, and then it was good to go. It was a great charcoal pit barrel, right? And so that's where I learned how to barbecue. Well, then I saw this thing about a master class, but it was like out of my price range for Franklin barbecue. But I was real inspired. I was like, God, it'd be so cool to learn how to do that. And then I was thinking like, okay, I can save the money. And it's only like $100 a year or so. I mean, I just didn't want to pay for the subscription.
I got you.
For just that, you know, at that point in time. Now it wouldn't be as big of a deal. But anyways, I was like, surely he has a book. He's got to have a book, some YouTube videos or something. And I went browsing, and he had this book called A Meat Manifesto. And if you guys like barbecue, okay, this is a little secret. That book is where I learned how to do everything that I know how to do for barbecue. Okay, now I've grown since then, but that book is, I would go as far as to say almost everything you would learn in the masterclass and more. He teaches you how to build a barbecue pit. He teaches you what kind of wood to use, how to know if it's seasoned, how to know if it's good, how to season the meat. In every kind of big meat that you would smoke. So, you know, I didn't let my situation hold me back because the problem was I needed barbecue. Well, I never would have imagined that I would have a food truck. But now I have one on the way. And when I read about his story, that's what the book was about, was how he got his start. He got his start with a food truck. And I saw a vision of what I could do. And it was the seed was planted, and I was inspired. And I remember having this inkling of like, oh man, it'd be so cool to do what he was doing because he was a musician. That's how he got his start. You know, he loved to eat good barbecue, and he would go on road trips to try different barbecue places in Texas. He learns how to do all these other things and weld and build his own pit and like fix up his own food truck, and you know, just a really cool story. And I just remember thinking that'd be so cool to do it. And then one of my friends kind of spoke that into me. He was like, dude, you are going to do a food truck and you're going to do really good at it. He just like called it out of me, and I was like, okay. You know, so then I started really thinking about it for real, because when somebody sees something in you and they like kind of call it out and like confirm like what you're already kind of wanting to do, but they confirm it. You should pay attention to that. You should, when you're like, not just your family, but your friends and maybe even random people that you meet are like, you're really good at that. You should consider doing it. You really should consider doing it, because there's a biblical truth to like when somebody confirms a gift that's in you.
For sure.
That is like that's a moment that you should pay attention to, because you know that's they see something in you that you might not see, but that's real. And some of the best feedback you can get from critical people, you know, good or bad. So I remember telling a lady at our church, I was like, hey, I think I'm going to get a food truck and start doing this. A year later, I have a food truck. But the interesting thing is she wanted to do the same thing. And she's been wanting to do it for years. And here's the interesting thought, okay? She saw me a year later, and I'm like, hey, that food truck idea, I have a food truck on the way. And she's like, blown away. Oh my gosh, are you for real? I feel like we were just talking about this yesterday, because I put the vision, I saw it, I put it into action, and literally it came from nowhere, just like a necessity, a problem that needed to be fixed. And that's, I would say for you guys, you know, you've got to constantly be growing, constantly be looking for that area in your life that is the path of least resistance. And if that door's starting to kind of open, bust through it and pursue that dream with everything that's within you, you know, and I'm telling you, if you start to pursue those types of things, you will see a year later that doors will start to open and your gifts will start to be used. But you've got to take steps to do that. And one of the steps I want to give you guys is some resources to read. And the first one is a book called Getting Things Done, because we talked about distractions, okay? And one of the hardest things about growing as a leader is to stay focused. Well, a lot of people, myself included, like checklists, or they don't like, myself included, checklists, love it or hate it. But my problem is that I'm an ideas guy, and before you know it, I'll have an overwhelming list of like 150 things. Yeah. How do you navigate that? Well, this book talks about it. He talks about how you got to have a dashboard that you keep all your projects, and a task and a project are like two completely different things. Mm-hmm. A project is made up of like hundreds of tasks, right? Right. But a task in and of itself is different than a project. And what I had to learn is that I was mixing the two. Yeah. A goal is different than a project, is different than a task.
Sure is, yeah.
And then once you have like a dashboard, like for me, I use Evernote, and I love Evernote. They have an app that you can use, and you can like take a picture, and straight through the app, it turns into a note, and you can go back to it. They have an extension for Google Chrome. Mm-hmm. Where like, have you ever been like reading an article and it has all the ads and stuff? And it's, you can do like a simplified article, and it'll automatically take out all the ads and just give you all the
awesome,
all the good information, and then you can save it as a note. Wow! And you can highlight straight when you go to the extension. You can highlight straight when you're using it on the simplified article, and then save it. That's awesome. And then title it. And it's just an amazing, especially as a songwriter, it's an amazing resource for me. And that's how I get things done. And that's the first book. The other book, The 5 Dysfunctions of a Team, was a lady who became a new CEO of a company, kind of over an overnight deal, and she was able to help the company get through their dysfunctions by identifying big dysfunctions. And one of the ones was that there was a guy who always had his computer open during staff meetings, and everybody thought he was checked out. But nobody asked him about it. Well, one day she asked him about it. Hey, can you put your computer down? Or like, what are you even doing? And he turned it around, and he was taking notes. So like, nobody thought to ask him, but there was this negative tension because they thought he would never speak up, and he would never say anything. Wow. But he was taking notes the whole time. Taking notes of his ideas, taking notes of what was being spoken, so it's like when we have staff meetings and we have like environments, it's so important that people feel like in this organization, trust was like gone, right? Mm-hmm. People didn't speak up about their ideas because they felt like if they did, it would get shot down, and that, like nobody would dare like challenge anybody. But a staff meeting is where, it's so important that your people feel like they can trust you enough to tell you, whether their idea gets used or not. Like, hey, this is my thought, this is my opinion, this is my suggestion. They want to be able to have buy-in and responsibility in your company. Yeah. And if you give that to them, they're going to respect you on a whole nother level. So I highly suggest those two books.
That's great, man.
What about you, Mike?
Well, I'm gonna just kind of say that if you light a match in a dark room, it can be seen. And a lot of times I think what most people fear in the workforce is that if I do what you guys are saying, if I say, okay, I'm gonna read those books, and I'm gonna go ahead and start really taking pride in what my job description is, or even go above and beyond, then management is not going to pay attention to that, or somebody else is probably going to get the credit. When the truth is that value can always be seen, even like that match in a dark room. So to me, it all goes back to mindset. It all goes back to, are you wanting the spotlight on you, and are you always looking for a trophy or a pat on the back, or are you committed to self-growth and self-excellence? And whether you get paid more or not, or it's a mindset that you have to shift, because if you continue thinking the way you think, then it's going to transfer over into every endeavor in your life. It's going to transfer over to church, to where you come in and you may never join. And I'm not taking shots at anyone, but you never join a small group. You never join the music ministry. You never join the kids ministry. You're just like, I'm just going to go to church and enjoy my hour, and I'm going home. that's fine. But to be honest with you, we're trying to encourage you and challenge you to do more, to be more assertive. And if it's not church, well, what about your personal household? Are you just doing the bare minimum to just say, hey, I'm a good spouse, I'm a good dad, I'm here, I'm showing up? Or are you going the extra mile and saying, you know what, I'm going to go beyond that. I'm searching for that promotion. I'm looking for that next level. And what is it going to take? How are you going to be authentic? Because there are billions of people on this planet, and how do you look different? And we're not just talking about features, but how are you different than the next person? How are you going to improve yourself from the next person? And how are you going to tap into your ceiling? Because what Michael said was important. There are some people that stopped growing. They've hit their ceiling, and they don't know how to bust through that. And so for me, the biggest thing is to find the toughest problems that you possibly can think of and solve them. And spend time peeling back the onion, do the research, fail 10,000 times until you come up with a solution. And if you want to create value and become a more valuable person, when you get used to doing that over and over again, you're going to see a life change that you never thought could happen, man, because value is never going to be ignored. So you don't need a trophy to know you're valuable. You don't need a promotion. It's going to happen because your boss is going to see, wow, what happened to this guy? Like, he's totally on fire. He's totally different. All he's doing is solving problems that I couldn't think of or didn't really care about. And my bottom line is going through the roof because of this person. So he deserves something more than what he's getting. And so it works. I don't have time to tell you my whole story about this whole podcast that we're talking about, but I've applied what we're talking about in my life, and I have seen a night and day experience in not only my business, but just everything across the board. So this stuff works, man. And honestly, I'm going to take notes from this podcast as I watch it again, because I want to go into something else that this is going to actually open up a door to a future podcast. So that's what I got, man. This was powerful, man.
So something you said made me think of, okay, I'm going to be the devil's advocate here. So what about that person? They've tried to implement, because I'm thinking of one story in my mind, a boss that micromanages, and, somebody that I know personally, just like in a coaching environment, isn't allowed to make calls, even though they're the coach of the team. The head coach of the entire university won't let them make the calls, won't let them be the coach. And just a very toxic work environment, because they're being completely micromanaged every step of the way. And some of the stuff that we're talking about, he tried to stay early, tried to like show up early, stay late, tried to, shift and just do everything that they possibly could to the best of their ability. And still, sometimes you just got a bad work situation and you just got to get out of it. Yeah. Honestly, you've got to get out of it. And, they'll know what they miss, but you've got to know your value. I think that's what's so important. You've got to know like you said, you've got to know your value, and you've got to know, even though sometimes like there might be a little bit of like, hey, I deserve to get paid more, and maybe at that point in time you didn't. But later on, as you matured and you know that you have the experience that you have, and you've had the training that you've had, and you have the proof to show like, hey, I'm not just saying that I should get paid more. Yeah. Like my experience in my title, in my knowledge, in my, education, my schooling, all this shows that I'm fully capable of doing what it is that I've been tasked to do. So, if they don't listen to that, then what'll happen is what happened to this person. They'll find a different job. Yeah. And at some point, they're going to be putting in their, as they work on everything that it's going to take to get this other job lined out, at some point, you know what they're going to hand you? Yeah. Well, they're going to hand you their 2 weeks notice.
The thing is, two points on that, man, is that, again, we started by saying it's about creating a culture. Okay. So somebody like that's not empowered, but has the ability to do it at a high level, is going to find a place where the culture is conducive for his growth. The second thing I want to say is it's so funny. I was just talking to a friend about this. If Adolf Hitler was in business, he would have been a Fortune 500 CEO. Does that make him a good leader? I mean, think about it. Like, so,
well,
I mean, no, really, people follow this guy. Yes, we know the history of what he did and what happened. But what I'm saying is that he had influence, good or bad. So these people that Michael was talking, they have influence, good or bad. It's just you have to determine if your values and the culture that you follow and is conducive for your growth. Because just because someone's in a leadership role does not mean that they're giving you the opportunity to grow, because you keep hitting that ceiling over and over, because they're not wanting you to solve those problems. They're not accepting your thoughts, and your visions are not matching up with their visions. And sometimes, yes, you need to know you're not quitting. You're not the one quitting. That environment is not conducive for you, and you got to be smart enough and wise enough to know that when it happens, if it happens. So, no, that was a good point, man. Because, like I said, there are some people that are in roles that you're just thinking, I don't get it. You're not giving me the opportunity to grow. You know.
So there's a book by Andy Andrews you made me think of. And I just want to say this: Hitler was a phenomenal leader. His problem, though, is that he killed like 11 million people.
Yes,
you know,
exactly.
And started like World War II.
Exactly.
And was, I think, even maybe involved with World War I. Just like, you know, a little bit. I would say it's his integrity,
right?
Or I don't know if you would even say it. His moral compass was off.
Yes,
that's what it was. His moral compass.
Yes, exactly.
But if he could have got his moral compass right, then yeah.
Who knows?
Who knows, like, what the future would have been like. Maybe he could have, like, instead of killing people, maybe he could have brought life somehow, you know? And but, so there's a book by Andy Andrews called How Do You Kill 11 Million People?
Wow.
And he kind of dives in to some of this. And it's a really short read, but one of the bottom line is that you lie to them.
Yeah.
And that when you look at everything that happened, there was a lot of like lying going on with all that on the leaders, and but kind of, you know, on the same vein of like what we're talking about, you know, I think it's to refocus is so important as a leader to continually be growing, you know, and it's the kind of thing where like what one thing if you could change it would make the biggest impact in your life? And I think that's the last question that we should end this on. You know, I think if you constantly ask yourself that, because you were talking a lot about solving problems.
Yeah,
you know,
for sure.
And if you're in an organization, that is a question that you can arm yourself with whenever you're thinking like 10 years down the road, okay, or 5 years down the road. You're thinking, okay, I want to be promoted. I want to get more money or whatever, get that raise. What one thing, if you were the person to solve it, would make the biggest impact? And think about it in your marriage. Think about it in your family. Think about it with your friends. Think about it in a one-on-one relationship with somebody. You know, like me and you. What one thing, if I were to help you solve this in your life, would make the biggest impact? Yeah. And if I know you and I think about it and then I do it, think about what's going to happen with our relationship. Like, man, he really, you know, he really helped me through this situation. Yeah. You know, I think there's going to be a huge level of admiration. I think the narrative that people are going to have about you, you know, is going to be not only positive, but it's going to be like you're going to be a hero.
So what I should have did, and I'll go back and correct myself. When I was 21 years old, instead of walking into my boss's office and saying, "Hey, I demand a raise because I've been here for 5 years and I'm early and I stay late," what I should have did was went into his office and said, "Hey, let me ask you a question. What keeps you up at night? What do you worry about? What is your biggest challenge right now?" And then I go to work on helping him solve that problem. And I assure you, if I would have did that, I would probably still be there right now at a high executive level, because your boss right now has problems. Trust me. And if you become an ally and help that person solve problems, because we see things from a different perspective, a different angle. At the time, I was an employee, and he doesn't see things that employees see. You know, he's in management. If I would have done that, like Michael said, if I and successfully solved a problem, my value would have went through the roof. So that's the secret to getting more money added to you, is create more value. That's it. Value equals more money. I'm just saying.
Be the person that sees. There's another book by Andy Andrews, The Bottom of the Pool. You guys got to check these.
Got to check these books. I mean, I'm telling you, that's where we get all this stuff from, man. It's just knowledge.
Bottom of the pool, and just. I'll end out with this story, is that there were some kids that would always compete they would swim as fast as they can and see who could jump the highest. And there was this kid who was bigger and taller than everybody, and he always won. Well, one day, this other kid decided, I'm going to go all the way to the bottom of the pool. So he goes, and then what happens, though, is that he had that extra leverage to push up and go faster because he went to the bottom of the pool and pushed off of the ground. And he was able to shoot up higher than anybody had ever seen, right? So the whole idea of the book is to go to the bottom of the pool in your industry, to not only think outside the box, but think outside the box thinking. Yeah. Because to say think outside the box is such a standard thing we say now. Now you have to even think outside the box thinking. Yeah. You have to go beyond outside of the box. Man, go all the way to the bottom of the pool. So it's, like it. That's why he's my favorite, author. He's a phenomenal author. So we always say that Albert Einstein says you cannot solve your problems with the same thinking that you used when you created them. Yep. So it comes back to mindset. And that's what we hope with this podcast is that out of everything that we talked about, and there's a lot of nuggets and all this stuff. Yeah. We truly, truly, truly do hope that you get one more idea that helps you, break the pattern and throw a wrench in it. Get a new way of thinking that helps you to get to the next level in your life, your family, your workplace, exercise, hey, whatever it is.
Whatever it is.
Get to the next level.
Yeah. So go out and solve a problem today, man, for real, because that's creating more value. But this is good. This is good. Thank y'all so much for watching.
And let us know. Drop a comment, hit like, share, do all the things you got to do to follow us. And we will see you guys again on the next One More Idea podcast.
Yeah, that was good, man.